The funny thing about this whole thing is that you're definitely going to be the good cop. So all of this, like, Maggie's going to have all of this joyful energy. I'm like, I know I'm the bad cop already. Like, I know I'm going to be the one that's, like, the bearer of bad news, or the chore chart isn't done, or whatever. Dad's going to be, like, the fun guy. That, like, yeah, let's build the fort and not do the thing Mom asked us to do.
I'm going to get a t-shirt with a mushroom on it.
What?
Fun guy.
Oh, fun guy.
Dad, he's already got the dad jokes.
God, that was bad. I'm sad I didn't even predict it. I was like, what is...
Welcome to the Love Department, the heartwarming podcast exploring the nature of relationships. I'm your host, Nick Lockhart, writer and former matchmaker turned love theorist. I'm so grateful you're here. Today on the show, I sat down for a chat with Maggie and Russell. They had a classic New York meet-cute, but their relationship is anything but old-fashioned. When I spoke to them, this duo was days away from becoming a party of three. We cover childhood trauma and how that can impact our ability to love, sexuality, and learning to love being in a larger body. This episode comes with some exclusive content you can find only at our Patreon. You'll hear about the time they both went to a Fish concert on New Year's Eve. Maggie has an oddly topical memory from that night, one that involved being pregnant. To get this content and so much more, visit our Patreon at the link in the show notes. This episode does mention disordered eating and drug use, so if you're particularly sensitive to those topics, you may want to skip ahead. And this is an adult conversation, so adult language may be used. It's your classic love story. Girl meets boy in a New York City bar. They exchange numbers. And, well, maybe it's not so typical after all. This is the love story of Maggie and Russell. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes, well, we'll get to the baby later.
Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
So, yeah, I mean, I went out to dinner with Matteo and his family in, like, Little Italy or Chinatown somewhere over by, like, the Manhattan Bridge. And then I was like, hey, everyone, let's walk over to Old Man Hustle. It was like 8 or 9 o'clock at this point.
But describe what Old Man Hustle is.
Well, rest in peace, actually. It just closed, like, last week, which is sad. But there is still one in Brooklyn. Because there's, like, a comedy bar out in Brooklyn.
It's not the same.
But
not
no.
the same. Yeah.
This bar is like a closet. Like, you can sit at the bar, and then it's a one-way street to the bathroom. And then to the front. That's it. There's no two-way traffic. Like
on Essex.
Yeah, on Essex, across from the park.
So you were just, like, normal night out.
I'm always there. Yeah, we're there all the time. Because, hell, I was, like, 29 years old. Yeah.
And in general, like, you weren't dating. Like, you weren't trying to date. Like, what was your, like...
I think
mental...
it's been probably a year, almost a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. So you were, like, definitely single.
I had just decided, it was at least like a year and a half because I just decided to, like, get back on the apps. And then I remembered how terrible they are. And so I just stopped. And yeah, I met a lot of interesting people. I like talking to people. Yeah, I generally just enjoy banter and learning about people's stories. Mm-hmm. And I met good people. But yeah, I think at that point in my life, I wasn't, like, prepared to deal with the amount of rejection that comes with it. So, like, once you come at peace with that, I think, like, the apps are awesome, probably.
Somebody rejected you?
No, because it's, like, it's all rejection.
Yeah. And, well, somebody has to reject one person, whether it's...
You can't be with everyone, Maggie.
I can't believe somebody rejected you.
Well, I remember when we started dating, I think at one point I was worried. I did, like, a Seinfeld thing where I was like, I think I have to break up with her because she'll never break up with me.
In a weird way, like, something has to fail before something can work.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to have exes, and most people have these failed attempts at finding love before you
Dude, I mean, yeah. If only I could take the advice I give to everyone else, which is, like, it only takes one.
Wow.
You know? But it's true, like, about to rejection. Like, of course you're going to be rejected 1,000 times until you're not.
Sounds like a great intro to my story. This could start in 7th grade for me. We're just gonna, because the context is helpful. Because we're literally gonna refer. Okay, so we're in Shawnee, Kansas at Monticello Trails Middle School in the mid to late 90s, and the song Casey and JoJo All My Life is a banger. It's a bop, it's
Preach,
a vibe.
bro.
It's
Slaps.
what is another thing the kids say?
It
No
slaps.
cap. It is really anyway.
Wow.
It's a great song, and I happen to be in love for the first time with Drew Scanlon. It is an unrequited experience. It is very painful. I really like him, and I tell him on Valentine's Day, and he rejects me, and whatever. But like, it's my first real love, and All My Life by Casey and JoJo is the song I coined to be our song, my song. Well, not unrequited again. But, you know, life went on. I learned from having my heart broken by Drew Scanlon, and time just continued. I fall in love with people. It doesn't take a lot. Like, and it doesn't mean I want to be with everybody in a relationship, but, like, I really like being in love with people. So, I moved to New York a year before I met Russell, and I was not interested in dating, really. I was here to be myself and just fucking live my life in New York City. And, of course, I fell in love. I met someone in a competitive karaoke league, which, by the way, you think you might not fall in love with the kind of men that do competitive karaoke, but I managed to fall in love with a guy that did competitive karaoke. And we had like a 3-4 month like dating relationship, and right about where it would have become a thing is when it didn't become a thing. And it crushed me because it was like New York. It was like the first New York love, and I thought that one was like actually gonna be different. So then I just said, fuck it. Like everything in my life kind of just like, it was before and after that heartbreak where I was like, I just don't care anymore, really. Like, I'll be myself. I don't need to be chasing people. And I just kind of figured I'd be single for a while, and it didn't matter. So I deleted all the apps. Like, we talked about apps. I was in no place to give a fuck about dating. And it was really freeing. Like, I was just extremely okay with that.
So Maggie and Russ were both in a place to just be. They had deleted the apps and experienced New York as two free, happily single New Yorkers until they showed up at the same bar.
So yeah, there was a night in February. It was like the last night in February, first early morning in March. It was like that last day of the month, and I went out with my friend Tracy, my best friend Tracy. Tracy got drunk, but I had been so hungover from the night before that it was a rare night where I was not going to drink. So I remember the whole night. Tracy's drunk. I'm tired. It's late. I've been sober. I've just been out to have a girl night, and I'm just like kind of over it.
It's super late.
It's like already 1 or 2. So it's that point where it's like, all right, time to go home. I live up on like Spanish Harlem. Like the train's going to take a while. Let's go. And she said, what if we just go to one more place and then we get a piece of pizza? And the pizza pulled me over. So I was like, the promise of the slice is like what will sustain me for like one more bar.
Ah, a New York slice. You know the deal. Cheesy, greasy, cheap. Perfect after a long night of partying with your best friends. I mean, who can resist that? Tracy's plan worked. But the night gets wilder from there.
So I walk into this little bar, or we start walking into this bar, and Tracy stops. She stops in the middle of the entryway. It's winter, so there's like that entry door that insulates the very small dive bar. She stops in the entryway, and she turns around, and she puts her hands on my shoulders, and she goes, "You are so gonna fall in love here." I shit you not, I was sober.
No, I don't believe this.
And I said, okay, Tracy, you little drunkard, let's go into your little bar, like whatever. No care, like didn't think about it, just like it was weird. It was weird.
Okay, I'm with Maggie here. Even as a former matchmaker, I can count on a few fingers where my intuition has clamored that loudly about a person. But Tracy hadn't even been inside, and she definitely couldn't have predicted what happened next.
And I'm kind of just standing at the bar. I'm standing at the end of the bar while they're dancing or drinking or something, and I'm just waiting for time to go get pizza. And then what song comes on? I will never find another lover We'll push this then, you know? And when the song comes on, I'm just kind of like trying to make conversation with somebody because I'm kind of bored. So I do one of these, like, turn to my right to whoever is there. Happens to be Russell. That kind of worked out. And I said, it's okay, Drew Scanlon. I don't want to go to the 7th grade dance with you anyway.
That was the first thing you said to
That's
him?
the first thing I said, and then a beat. And then he turned back to me and he said, well, I'm really glad you're over it now.
Of all the famous opening lines, this one might go down as the strangest in history. But a conversation started, and before they knew it, it was closing time.
But then at the end of the night, I was like, okay, so this guy hasn't asked for my number. And like, I'm fucking so sick of, again, like the cynicism of like waiting for a guy to decide my fate. I'm like, fuck that. I opened up my phone and I opened up a contact, like a new contact, and I handed him my phone and I said, hey, let's play a game. You can put any name and any number that you want to put in my phone, and that way if you don't want to see me or talk to me again, it's a super easy way to reject me. But if you do, then cool, and I can text you tomorrow. And so he put Russell, and it was the right number. And I had to
Which is honestly a miracle in itself, because it can.
Because you could have fucked it up because you're drunk.
I could have intended to give you the right number and done it, and yeah. So she texted me at like 10:30.
Yeah, the next morning I was like breaking the rule of like waiting for like what do they say, like wait like 2
Dude, like
days
I
or
closed,
something?
like we were together at the bar at like 3.
And I was like sober, so I wasn't hungover the next morning. I was like awake, like oh my god.
So 7 hours later, you're text.
I think it was closer to noon. To be fair.
No, like I definitely closed the bar and then went home. So I probably didn't see it until like 1 o'clock.
But I didn't know if it was gonna be his real number. Like I also just needed to like.
The idea that you just didn't wait, like it's just red flags.
I know it really. I don't know why you texted me back.
Thankfully, it was Russ's real number. And so, to make himself more memorable, the next day he sent a photo of him reading, mostly because he wanted a photo of her to refresh his memory of what she looked like. He was reading The Goldfinch. There's a quote from the novel that reminds me why I started the Love Department and started interviewing couples in the first place. It says, as long as I am acting out of love, I feel I am doing the best I know how. Either way, it worked, and Maggie sent him a photo as well. The banter was witty and charming, and all of that was refreshing to these jaded New York daters. So a week later, they met up for a date.
We were able to sit on like couches across from each other, Randolph beer.
But yeah, we sat across from each other and like I spilt a drink, and I remember spilling this drink, and one of my first impressions of him that like made me go, huh, was that like he quickly went to grab my purse out of the way. I don't know why that mattered, but it just struck me as like a really thoughtful impulse. Anyway,
What was that supposed to do?
but they charged me for that drink, then I had to buy
Yeah, you
another one.
fucking spilled it.
I did, to be fair.
All over the place.
All over.
I don't even think she took a sip.
But I took, hey, you still have the napkin, don't you?
Oh yeah, Maggie's first apartment. She's trying to get her to explain like what her bedroom is.
Like the layout of my apartment
Yeah, so
was
in her
weird.
they built an illegal bedroom like into the apartment's living room. So like there was a window to the hallway to another window.
I did not build this, by the way. When he said they, it's not me. But
We know you didn't add a room
Just
to a
making sure.
rented apartment at
I'm not
103rd
liable.
Street. So she had to draw me a picture.
So I took a cocktail napkin and I like drew the layout. And then like a year or two later in his nightstand, I found the napkin. He had saved the napkin of my doodle. That was fucking cute.
That was very cute, Russ.
Because you're not
Oh,
very
no,
sentimental about things. Like, I didn't know that that's something you would have saved. Like, that's
I mean, I thought it was a fun idea at the time, and then you just hold on to things. I mean, I don't hold on to that
Is
much.
it still up in your nightstand?
Definitely.
Oh. I think that's very sweet. Like, because you never know what kinds of things are going to be important. But sometimes I feel like the universe has this way of being like, hey, dummy, pay attention to this moment, or like what's happening
It's
here.
funny.
Don't like go home. Go get a slice of pizza at least.
Yeah, and the fact that Tracy said that shit about you're gonna fall in love here, that was the weirdest part. And so I had to keep that part a secret
For a long time.
until like we got married. Like Tracy shared that she was my maid of honor. And like for the longest time, it was just like, I cannot tell Russell about that, because it just felt like this magical little thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Russell's not one to be magical. Like, that's our biggest thing. Like, do you disagree? You don't believe in like the fun, like little magical things that I
Serendipity.
Like about our-
I thought you meant like tricks.
No,
No.
synchronicity, the larger picture.
Romance, she's talking about.
Yeah.
I'm a working man's romantic. Yeah, I'm a painful romantic. I think that's my thing. Yeah, not the fairy tale romantic.
And I don't think I'm fairy tale romantic, but like when the universe presents something to you, like I would rather choose to see it as magical than not. Sometimes when you see things that feel maybe like possibly like special, you're at risk of not seeing them if you don't acknowledge them. Like to me, it's kind of like the universe will show things to you, but like how many people miss the things that are trying to be shown? Sure, I could live this whole time and be like, yeah, Russ and I met at a bar. But like there were lots of little things about my story and like the whole Drew Scanlon bit, which by the way, Drew, if you're listening, I hope things are going well for you. Thank you for the role you played in my life. Shout out to Drew
Forgot about
In
how
a way, he
embarrassing
kind of
that was.
helped you meet
No,
Russ.
I mean, exactly. Well, that's the whole point. Like, sincere gratitude to like all those little things. I would like to look at those and be like, there's some magic there. But I also think it's innately magical that we exist as people, humans, species, planet. Like,
It's her form of mindfulness. That's what it is.
And yeah, in a way, to be spiritual and to accept that there's bigger forces is a way to live and to cope and to exist. And there's the working man's.
Russ's theories about love are inferred from his childhood. This working man's romantic idea really intrigued me, so I asked him to explain what he meant.
Well, I definitely just made that up on the fly. So I'll say there's a lot of similarities, right? Like the thread is just like finding those moments where you feel contentment, and the world just sort of like stops like existing in your mind, basically. Like I think that's what my mom told me one time when she was like telling me like, and she would always talk about like love and like what to look for in relationships, and like she would just say whenever you'll just be laying with this person and the world will just disappear out of your mind. The world will like stop, I guess.
To lose a parent at any age is incredibly difficult, and to lose them when you're young is a pain unlike any other. I can certainly understand Russ's hesitancy to be open to love in a whimsical, romantic sort of way, especially when you know that death is only a moment away from taking all of us in the end.
I think for me it was a lot of work to like overcome like the barriers that life gave me on that path specifically, like the path to love. It was always like something, it wasn't like the fairy tale love, right? It was like it was a more simple, real world, like more tangible, like more achievable, more realistic kind of, I guess that's what like the art and theater and movies that I was exposed to was just more grounded in reality for me.
what kind of love do you think like your mom and your dad had? Was it like the romantic-y love? Was it the like?
Yeah, I mean, they met when they were 15 and married when they were 21, and I'm the firstborn, and they were 33. Yeah, I mean, that was, for them, I'm sure it was like storybook. But then I grew up with like Kevin, which was more of like a partnership.
Kevin is your stepdad.
So I guess like the modeled relationship for me maybe wasn't so like, I don't know. I don't know if it was like, if I'm focused on what Kevin and mom's relationship was to model mine, or like I'm just afraid of what my mom and dad had because that was like torn from them, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not looking for like Disney moments. I'm looking for like content, simple moments of just, you know, you don't need to like force a moment. You don't need to go on a vacation. You just need to like be laying in bed watching TV and everything else just kind of melts away.
Yeah, you don't.
That's what my mom described to me, like not the whatever's going on Instagram, right? Like,
Yeah, he gives me a hard time about Instagram.
she was already, because she formed me to avoid these things that came later.
Yeah.
It's
And
wild.
maybe some of that's part of like her own fears of how hard it can be when you do have that kind of very romanticized version of it, and then real life hits you square in the face, and it's no longer that fairy tale that you.
Yeah, like what I look for in a partnership is like a lot of different things. Like maybe I went for like a partnership, like more of like buying a house than looking for a romantic partner. You know what I
feels
mean? Like
nice.
it's kind of like portrays the idea of like, I'm gonna like conflate metaphors here, but like it's not just one issue that is important. Like you're looking for all these different check boxes, and it just felt like I knew that I needed someone that I could like get through life with. Like I wasn't looking for like, let's run away and forget about the world. Like the world will find you. Like I needed somebody that I knew could like get through the shit when it hits.
Yeah.
I will say, being on the receiving end of this, that it's not always, like, real talk. It's not always super sustainable to not know what fireworks there are. Because, you know, like, I am someone who has, what's my love language? Oh, all of them. Any of them. Pick one. Like, I will accept any language of love that you want to give. But sometimes it's working man romance, and like it's just kind of an assumption, because it's true, we have a bond that it's like when water comes through the ceiling above this room that we're sitting in, and we're buckets and coolers and figuring out insurance and whatever, we're there, we're like, we're partners, we're life buds, we're friends, we're all of it. But like in the day-to-day, when I'm just like not feeling super close to you and like romantic ways that like my little sparkle needs, like the way that my gears are ready to turn, it's like I really have to like pull it from you or beg you in ways, because it's just not natural to you. Yes, it's the contentment is there, and there's this underbelly of trust and like unassumed like love that we both know is there. But the way it like shows up in life every day, like those quiet moments when we're watching TV, they're happening, but like I feel robbed if they're only happening in his mind. I want to hear that they're happening, or I want the touch that reminds me that they're happening, or I need something more sometimes. I agree that was like, I think we're on the same page in wanting that in each other, because we do balance a lot of that stuff.
What did Ian say? I think it was not at the wedding party, but at our actual wedding. He said something like, "We don't really make sense as a couple." He kind of narrowed it down to like, he's like, I think what they like in each other is that like what they see is like something they can never be, but they secretly want for themselves. So it's like, I was proud of him in that moment. Like he got it. Like he taught me something about my relationship in that moment, for sure.
From the outside, it's clear that these are two individuals and independent thinkers. But it's also clear that mutual respect is there.
I think that's mostly like why we end up like butting heads a lot, I think, for sure. Because we both know who we are individually, and we're like really afraid to lose that, I think.
Yeah, and we're
So we
emotionally
like buddy, we like yell at each other for like, don't take this from me.
We're very stubborn individually, and I think we're both like emotionally, like we both spend a lot of time like looking at ourselves. It's kind of like this hard thing, because you're in a relationship that's closer than any other relationship. So you trust innately that they know and they see you in a way that like is both incredibly intimate but also valuable, because it's an outside perspective. So you're constantly trying to figure out, is the feedback from that person real? Am I really bad at communicating that one thing when we're in that fight pattern? Or is he not hearing me? Or like, where is whenever there is a moment of tension and conflict, it's always like, when you're super close to someone, it's almost impossible to objectively figure out where the fault line is. Because you just trust the other person, but you also trust yourself. So we both have therapists, so we constantly try, but that's part of why I think our relationship is good. Like we both really care about caring for ourselves and like understanding our own emotional needs and boundaries, but then trying to apply it to show up for the other person and not make them feel totally like out of luck.
I think it's the battle between like self-care and other people care, because the belief is like you can't care for if you the RuPaul thing.
If you can't love yourself.
Yeah, right. So it's like if you can't support yourself, like building that skill to like throw that aside, staring down the barrel of like child coming. I like that metaphor. Is like the epitome of that.
On the date of this interview, Maggie and Russell are days away from meeting their first child. I can't help but wonder what they'll think of this a couple months later when the show finally airs, and how they're doing. I know I would give anything to hear a recording of my parents just weeks before I entered the world. The things they thought about, the hopes and dreams they had for me. So this is a very special moment. Maybe one day they'll share it with this little one. But before we get there, let's talk more about the fear they have going into this new life change.
It's a huge life event that I'm just beginning to process. Like, but here comes the baby also. So like, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, the baby, the house, being in a relationship, it's all, for me, it's just running at fear. For me, it's like if I'm afraid, I've sort of learned to sort of be like, I think that's what you should do. Like, obviously, like, I don't mean there's like personal safety. There's like, I need to get out of here. And then there's just the saboteur. I'll bring it back to RuPaul again. The inner saboteur, because these are just your thoughts. And you're all of those, right? But a lot of those thoughts are stupid, I find.
When Russell talks about like the fear, running at fear, like throughout our entire relationship, it was only driven by me. Like, are we boyfriend, girlfriend? Like he was hanging in for all of it. He was never opting out. And I was never like manipulative here. But like the decisions that took place to like evolve our relationship, like we're dating, we're boyfriend, girlfriend, we're going on a trip together, you're meeting my family, we're going to move in together. All of those things that had to move forward were propelled by me. I was the only force. And every time they were met with fear, not like full on resistance, because all those things happened. Like literally, I don't know how they happened, because you were afraid for sure.
At what point did marriage come up for you?
We had been dating like probably 4 years. We'd been living together for like a year. And it was clear to me that like my age and also my relationship, contentment, that I could see myself with this person and I would like to see myself with this person. But I was not going to move that one forward. Like that was like where I was like, nope, that's him. Like I'm not going to do. And not only that, but I did kind of have a weird, unexpected kind of midlife-y crisis moment of like, this means I won't get married until at least this age, which means I won't have kids until at least this. I started doing the thing I'm sure many women do, especially when you're in your 30s, where like you start to accidentally like plot out these like timelines that shouldn't have to exist, but they do if you want to have a baby biologically. And so I kind of had to like tell him at one point, which I hated doing because it was the one thing I didn't want to have to move forward, but like, if we're not, engaged by like this time next year, like it's going to be really a big thing for me. Like I need you to know. Like I had to kind of give him the seed planted of I will be leaving this relationship because I cannot do that. Like I can't propel that and I can't wish it so hard that you decide to wish it too. It had to just be you figuring it out.
In my brain, what happened was like I was just sad that she was so upset. So that was kind of like my reaction.
I was upset, but it wasn't like it was weird. It was a weird kind of thing because it was a rush of this like midlife-y crisis that I didn't know was going to happen.
I mean, it was kind of
it was like a raw,
like an
weird
panic attack.
It was
I
like
was there. I remember this.
Yeah, it was a really vulnerable place for me. It wasn't like something I'd been seeding in my brain. Like I gotta have the talk with Russell about our timeline. Like it was nothing like that.
It was around your birthday, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was the night before my birthday.
Right.
Yeah.
Where everything was fine and then it wasn't.
Yeah, but we both communicated and you got the point. I never brought it up again, and you didn't propose till June the following year. So like, 11 months in between, I was just like, I'm just going to trust that he heard me for it.
Yeah,
I mean, I know innately the fear that you're holding, so I've never like held it against you that things were trickier in commitment sense.
But you gave him like the 2 cents heads up, like, hey, if you were to do this thing, it should happen soon, and I would be very happy about it, so don't be afraid.
Yeah, and also here's like the superhuman reason why I'm anxious about it. Like,
Yeah.
you deserve to know those things and take it and run. And you did, and you proposed, and we got married.
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into it, and I don't know that, like, I don't know, like, I don't get excited about things. That's sort of like who I am. So, like, to say, like, oh, I definitely 100% knew, like the way my mom would talk about when she saw my dad. Maybe that's like another tie into like the working man's love thing, right? Like the idea of you see, and a lot of people have this story of like you just knew. Like I don't think I was confident, but I don't think I'm confident about like really anything that I've done in my life, like any of like the big life choices that I've made. I don't know. I guess society sort of convinces people that you have to like 100% know. And then we were talking about that one guy, like it's like either fuck yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I had read that stuff too, but I also read his boundary stuff. And I found his boundary stuff like super effective because I employed that like when we met.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never like, oh, no doubt in my mind. Like, this is it for me.
I mean, we still have doubts, right? Like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you said that because I think I was going to let that one go. You know what strangely, I think the foundation of all of that is the thing that you may not want to talk about.
Ready to hear more from this couple? Visit the link in our show notes to find exclusive content available only on the Love Department Patreon. Self-expression is something that always came easily for Maggie. But when it came time to bring up her sexuality, she was nervous that it would change things in her relationship with Russ. Maggie felt safe to come out, and she identifies as bisexual, something that when she shared with Russ, she was surprised to find it didn't matter.
I honestly think Maggie's looking for more attention around her queerness. Like, I didn't...
I'm glad I wanted you to answer that first.
She was like, I'm bisexual, and we don't get enough attention.
Well, I say that now because I think it's true. I think there's a lot of lack of representation of bi.
And then we saw Bros, and there was a reference to that.
But it's true, and especially because you guys are in like a heteronormative, dynamic, it can be really frustrating, I'm sure, to be like, is there part of you that feels still that it's not being honored in a way, or that you wish you, could stay in touch with or identify in?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think everybody is so different. Like, anyone who probably identifies as queer in any way is probably, like, constantly wondering, like, am I doing this thing right? Like, maybe not. Maybe the goal is to not have that little thought. But for me, it's, like, this weird thing. And, we were already dating when I was at the point where I was, like, I think that this is, like, confidently, like, who I am. And I've never really said it, like, in a way that I should, I think. And so it was, like, weird timing because I wasn't trying to, like, expand my dating pool right now, or, like, it wasn't, like, the middle of Pride Month. Like, I just kind of felt like I owed it to myself to, like, try to say it. Mm-hmm. And so I remember being nervous to kind of tell Russ in a way, just because I think a lot of people, especially when you come out as bi, I think unfortunately it's interpreted a lot of the times as, like, you're not fully invested in any one thing. It's like this, like, pole of, like, you can't choose, or, like, you're half there and half there, That's not the case, right? Like, I think I said, like, second sentence into talking today, like, I just love falling in love. Like, I'm able to do that with lots of people for lots of reasons, romantically, platonically, sexually. Like, it's just not a thing for me. So having him just act like no big deal was super affirming. Especially when there were people, like, in my family that were even just kind of, like, confused and annoyed that they didn't know, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, in terms of, like, how I live my life inside of this container of what is a very heteronormative appearing relationship, it is hard because I have to constantly think about, like, what would my life be like if I'd fallen in love with a woman before Russell, like in a way that was like this? And then also, do I owe the world more vocalization about the fact that I'm bi because I need to make sure they don't think I'm straight? You know, like, or is that just seeking attention? You know, what is like the line? It's not like a clear thing, like the color of my skin you see, but this is like this weird thing that's also very personal and private. Like, it's, I don't owe people receipts about my like sexual preferences, personal relationship preferences. So I don't know. It's a dance that I'm definitely still freestyling. But I do think that it's been helpful to like just have it be like a non-threatening thing ever with like the bond that Russ and I have, because I think there's plenty of heterosexual males who would be like either threatened by that or like grossly like, oh, can we have a threesome with a girl, like demeaning bro stuff. And Russell
Can we though?
I was like, this is where his comedian is just gonna say this. But like, you know, it's nice to not have that stuff from him, because I could have gotten stuck with somebody who was not as good.
Yeah, I really don't even remember like when.
It was so not
It
important.
was so not important. And also, thank you for asking me about that topic.
Of course.
Because it's such a foreign thing that I even forget that it might matter.
We're going to take a quick break here, but we'll come back for some baby talk. I'm Nick Lockhart, and this is The Love Department.
Maggie was watching her cycle for a long time, and she made it known when the right time was.
I was like, hey, what are you doing right now? Interesting. We should do something else.
Yeah.
Incredibly lucky. Like, I think as far as pregnancies go, it's been like the easiest. Like, I can't imagine a better pregnancy for someone.
And Maggie has been thinking about being a mother for a long time. Just listen to this cute letter that she wrote to her future child when she was only a child herself.
Okay, so this is the little letter I wrote to my future kid on July 15th, 1997. Dear future kid, this is your mom, Maggie. I put my name in quotations. I am 9 right now, but almost 10. I'm going into 5th grade. I can't wait till I first get to hold you in my arms. Okay, now I'm gonna pause because I want to cry because it's like really, really fucking sweet.
You could take a beat.
You could take 2 from the top.
Yeah, we can do this as many times as you need.
Okay.
It's all right.
Let's start over.
You have to get through it.
I have to, and I won't cry.
I mean, you can
You can cry.
but eventually
Okay.
you can cry.
Dear future kid.
No,
It's that workman's romance.
Wait, what do you mean no?
just like
I can't wait till I first get to hold you in my arms. You might think my life sounds old-fashioned, but it's not. I think it's really cool. You don't know how much your future aunts annoy me, but I still love them. Bye. Love XOXO, future mom.
Maggie and Russ had already moved just outside of the city when it became clear that they had a baby on the way. So you can imagine that these are the kind of moments that really require some on-your-feet thinking. We've reached another point where we'll be talking about a sensitive subject of eating disorders. So if you'd like to skip ahead, please see the show notes for timestamps.
So basically, like, we moved here. I never had a gynecologist here, and then I found out I was pregnant. So I had to do a lot of, like, doctor work off the bat. So I found this doctor. She's great. I like her. But I had to kind of, as I do with all doctors, I kind of have to make sure that they know that, like, I don't like getting weighed unless it's, like, medically necessary. And because I'm pregnant, I've let them weigh me at all my appointments. But, like, I have a history of disordered eating. And, like, certain things are better to keep out of my sight. So, like, BMI numbers and, like, weight numbers, those things just aren't helpful. And early on with this new gynecologist, they had put my weight at, like, a really prevalent, obvious place in this online portal that I found at, you know, no fault. Like, it was somebody who just was uploading the report information. And I'm sure most patients don't have requests like that. But I felt like it was horrible because I hadn't known my weight for, like, almost 8 years. I hadn't stepped on a scale. And that's when all my recovery happened. So for me to like put a number with my body was really hard. And so I did have an appointment. The follow-up appointment was tricky, and I had to kind of tell the doctor, like, I respect science, I respect medicine, but I also have this lived experience that makes it really hard for me. And so I need to just ask again that like your office does whatever it can to like not expose me to some of those numbers. There's something called preeclampsia.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
So I guess you're at higher risk of that if you are in a larger body. And so it's something that one of my obstetrician friends was like, hey, are you on baby aspirin? Like she was just my friend asking me about what I was doing. And I wasn't. So I learned about this like thing through my informal friendship, not my doctor relationship. And so I had to go to my doctor and say, hey, should I be taking this baby aspirin for this thing? In which case her reply was something to the effect of, well, I didn't want to bring that up because you vocalized you were sensitive about your weight. Which wasn't the point I made. I just, like I want to be medically cared for.
I do believe it was a misunderstanding, to be fair.
Yeah, and there's no rule book for like how to say these things when they're emotional in nature and they're based on lived experience, which is stigmatizing and oppressive and like trauma informed, right? Like all of that's valid for me. But also medicine is a thing, and like I want science to be a part of my care, and I respect science. I have criticisms of how studies are done and blah, blah, blah. But like, so I have to kind of like make sure she doesn't think I'm kooky. I want good care, but I just, I don't want to be a complicated patient.
I think she was just playing it safe based on what you described earlier about seeing your weight.
Yeah, but you know what? I will say,
so
now that I've seen the weight, I've been like, no, it doesn't matter. It was kind of a nice test because it crushed me at first. But now I look at it, like I go out and I find it now on my reports just out of curiosity because, oh, I'm this much more pregnant. I wonder how much weight I'm actually gaining. Like it doesn't hold the power as a long-term hurtful thing. I mean,
the diabetes was difficult at first. I think you were just like prideful to be in your body type, and you wanted to not hear those words diabetes. And for me, I learned that I had no idea what diabetes is because I think I just assumed it was like too much sugar, but it's both. It's too much and too little. And for Maggie, like her fasting number, she's able to control her sugars with food. It was when she wasn't eating that the numbers were bad.
Which goes to show that it's my body and it's the way that my hormones are, and my insulin resistance is like a thing. So that was validating. I don't have to like beat myself up about counting carbs, and because it's also like there are people that have to do that, and I'm with my eating disorder stuff. If I were counting carbs this whole time, it would be horrendous for me, like mentally, and it would cause me to have a really hard recovery on the other side. So. And
you're thinking about the health of the baby at the same time. So you're dealing with your own personal like growth, what you're past, and then you're also trying to fight for what's best for the child.
And despite her past issues with body image, Maggie says this baby has made her really fall in love with her body for the first time. It's the greatest gift she can give herself and their child. Self-love.
I know a lot of people, have a lot of aches and a lot of pains throughout pregnancy, and I definitely have more now, but I didn't really have aches and pains till recently. And sometimes I'm like, it's probably because my body's been carrying weight and it knows, like, it's not such a shift.
It's a strong body.
It is. And I'm grateful. Like, I feel more healthy in my body than I've ever felt, and that's cool. So many women just like really hate their bodies, right? Like in general, but once they become pregnant, you hear it a lot of, different ways, and everyone hates their stomach getting bigger and their ankle and this and that. And I just feel like because I like was able to do my recovery work, I've had the most peaceful relationship with my body. And I've just been like so fucking down with my stomach. I've never loved my stomach. I've never cared about my stomach. And it's just like so funny to like go from a place where like I would have to mentally tell myself to put my hands on my stomach, like if I were meditating or something. Yeah. But like otherwise there's no reason I would ever touch my stomach. Mm-hmm. And being pregnant, it's like the only place my hands want to be, you know? And it's just like a beautiful kind of like a mending of that, because I'm hopeful that like that piece will kind of remain. I'm just excited to like see Russell be like a dad. Like I know what I'm gonna be like as a mom. Like the picture of me as a mom is like, it's just been ingrained in my brain. Like I have a letter that I wrote to my future kid from 1997. And so like I've known that that's a thing. But Russell, I think, and this is just my observation, I might be incorrect, but I don't know how much imagination you've like put to like what it will be like and how you will change and what will be the best parts of everything for you as a dad. And I'm excited to like witness that, because I think it's going to like really make you feel so alive and happy and things that you don't usually allow yourself to feel without piggybacking into fear. You're not usually like open arms when it comes to just full on joy. You usually have a protective barrier. And I think a kid's going to probably make you get out of that a little bit and make you force some just pure, unfiltered fucking joy. And I'm excited. I want that for you. And I like want to watch it because it's like part of why I love you so much.
Yeah, I talk about it in therapy. Actually, I mean, that's probably my biggest fear, is like letting emotion in.
Mm-hmm. So having a child.
And loss of identity. I'm pretty freaked out about loss of identity.
I think what children do, though, is they give you a sense of yourself in different ways because they reflect to you the same way when you get in a partnership with somebody. You're like, oh, and like we were saying, am I really that controlling? Having a kid reflects back to you, I think, in so many ways, the joys, but also the hard parts of growing up. And you get to live life in a way, not through them, but with them. And you, now that you know better, can give that child that equilibrium that you have, but you can also share in the joy that's probably going to be beaming through from Maggie's part side of trades and yours as well. Like it'll connect you to the joys you had that you've probably forgotten.
That I've blocked out.
Yeah, we're so joyful.
For sure.
Or that you didn't get to have, because your childhood was not necessarily like your ability to just have unfiltered joy was very different from mine, you know? Like I didn't have trauma like you did. And the funny thing about this whole thing is that you're definitely going to be the good cop. So all of this like Maggie's going to have all of this joyful energy. I'm like, I know I'm the bad cop already. Like I know I'm going to be the one that's like the bearer of bad news, or the chore chart isn't done or whatever. Dad's going to be like the fun guy. That like, yeah, let's build the fort and not do the thing mom asked us to do.
I'm going to get a t-shirt with a mushroom on it.
What?
Fun guy.
Oh, fun guy.
Dad, he's already got the dad jokes.
God, that was bad. I'm sad I didn't even predict it. I was like, what is this mushroom t-shirt?
Oh, but I did want to ask if you could say something to this little being that's going to be here in this world in less than 3 weeks, maybe.
We're going to call it 2.
We're going to call it 2.
I'm going to go first.
Yeah. What would you tell them?
That this person has the ability to just do what they want, and that they get to be healthy and just experience the better half of the human condition as much as possible. That is my wish. And that you're prideful of being a part of our family. That's kind of important.
Aw. I didn't think about it like that. That's cute. Yeah, I feel like Russell's answer was kind of hitting on what my gut response was. All I really want to do for like this person is like give it like the foundation of like freedom to know who they are, which is I think what Russell was saying, you know, just like, you know, in terms of their interests or their identity or whatever, because I feel like part of the reason I love life so much is because I've gotten that gift myself of being like a kid who just had what I needed to know who I was really clearly. And that sense of self is like just such a fucking cool thing. And I feel really bad when people don't have that. I'm just like, ugh. So if that's all I can do for my kid, that's what I want to do. Because I think the second part of that, the question about just what do you want them to know about love, I think it really is the reflection, right? Like the RuPaul, how are you going to love somebody else? You can't love yourself. And knowing who you are is the first step to that, I think. Like,
I once heard this quote that said the opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. And it kind of makes me think of some of the things Russ was saying too. It's like there's so many obstacles that one has to overcome to find love. And sometimes it's fear that they're not gonna like my body, fear that they're not going to like my past, fear that, I'm never gonna find what my parents, there's all these fears that kind of...
Well, those are all external too.
Yeah.
But then there's the internal fear of like letting in love, accepting love.
Someone to sit in my chair.
And being vulnerable, allowing yourself to allowing yourself to accept love and to not want to run away with it.
To be alive, if you would.
Yeah, the reminder to be alive, that you're alive.
Yeah, that's what love is, I think. I think that if I were to sum up the definition of what you guys have showed me is that love reminds us that we're alive, and that's why we're here.
And that's why Sondheim already wrote that song.
Thanks to Sondheim, we all know love a little more deeply. Now it's time to transition to the lightning round. What has love taught you?
I'll go first.
Love is an open door.
Okay, that was stupid. The rest of all of Russell's answers will be bait for me to sing a song.
Lightning round.
Okay, sorry. Love has taught me how massively beautiful and special it is to get to be alive and to know what love is.
I think love is the overriding emotion that you should experience and allow as part of a larger mosaic, the driving emotion towards what it is to be alive. I think that makes sense. Did that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Last question. How do you define love?
It's empathy and forgiveness and care and selflessness.
You throwing those words together makes me think of it like a stew of certain feelings and, whatever that just combines to become more flavorful. Like the best thing that you could have is love, but it requires certain genuine and authentic and like vulnerable feelings that are empathetic and passionate and curious and compromising.
Understanding. Did I say that? No, I don't think so.
Like, I think it's kind of the elevation of all of those individual and I think gratitude. That's
ignoring your ego. Maybe not ignoring, but putting it to the side.
It's in the love stew.
It's in the love stew.
Episode title.
Oh, you don't like mushrooms? Let me pull those back out.
Fun guy.
And that's all for now. I think that's a perfect place to leave them. You've been listening to The Love Department, hosted by Nick Lockhart. Today's episode was a delicious love stew, produced in Brooklyn, New York. A special thank you to Maggie and Russ for allowing us to interview them for today's episode. Special thanks to producer Karen Mento and sound engineer Bree Seeley. Our theme song is Love by Adam Baldick. Please stay in touch with us. You can reach out to the show on the HeartLine by visiting our website at www.love-department.com. For exclusive content that is written, you can subscribe to our Substack for just $5 a month. You'll find a yummy recipe there for a pink limonita cocktail. I came up with it myself. But hey, while you're here, leave us a review and subscribe to this podcast. Okay, now hand to heart for the count. 1, 2. I wish you love.